Welcome to CEO with Sophie. Just a quick note from me. If you like what you hear, go ahead and join the CEO Club right now by hitting that subscribe button. Not only will you never miss an episode, but you'll also be helping us out more than you know. Thank you and enjoy. I am super excited for this episode. So welcome to today's episode with our guest, the incredible Dr. Gigi Arnaud, an award-winning life coach, hypnotherapist, and mindset expert with over 20 years of experience transforming lives. She helps people reprogram their mindset by learning to listen to their body, heart, and mind, turning negative, limiting beliefs into empowering thoughts aligned with their authentic selves. From upgrading your mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual systems to achieving greater health, joy, success, and fulfillment, Dr. Gigi is passionate about guiding you to live your best life. From being a top dentist in New York City to now a coach, speaker, visual artist, writer, and author in the making, this is so for you if you just need a little helping hand. So let's dive into her wisdom today that I'm sure is going to inspire and elevate your life. Let's get going. So I'm so excited that I managed to get this amazing person that I was introduced to last year on the podcast, Dr. Gigi, who was absolutely a game changer for me last year when I was going through a lot of changes. So I really wanted to get her here so you can hear all of the amazing things that she spoke to me about last year. Really, it's going to be a snippet because we did a lot last year. But yeah, welcome, Dr. Gigi.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with you, Sophie.
Good. Lovely. So I know I've given everyone a little bit of a background, and trust me, they've heard about you quite a few times from some of these other podcasts. But please do give us a little bit of an overview on yourself and your background, because it's slightly different to, I suppose, a normal coach's background. So please dive into this for us.
Right. Normal, whatever that means, right, Sophie? So yes, I don't have a typical background. I've been a coach, actually, a life and mindset coach and a hypnotherapist or a hypnotist for over 20 years. But I did it on the side. I was actually a dentist for almost 40 years. I know I look much younger, only kidding. But I was a dentist for a long time. And then I actually got into hypnosis because of my dental patients, because I had a lot of people who had dental phobias. There were a lot of Europeans I had. And then I had a funny thing. A neighbor of mine, when I was raising my son in New Jersey, came to me and said, "Oh, did you hear about life coaching?" It was just starting when she came to me. I'm like, "Not really." And she said, "Oh, I think you'd be great. You like to listen to people's stories. You're curious about people's lives," which I am. "And you are people talk to you. They'll just talk to you because I don't tend to judge, and I tend to understand, fortunately and unfortunately, because unfortunately is because I've been through a lot of the suffering and the stuckness and all that I talk about or work with clients." But a few years ago, 4 years ago, I gave up the dentistry completely and sold my practice in New York City. And now I'm focusing just on life and mindset coaching, hypnosis, and really loving it. Really loving it. Because I work with really interesting people like Sophie from all over the world who are first generation like I am, right? Or American or from wherever. So it's fabulous.
I suppose the question I have, and a lot of people don't use coaches, right? Or they're not aware of who coaches are, what they do. So are you able to give us a little bit of an understanding around what actually is a coach?
That's a great question because I get that a lot. So I usually differentiate coaches from therapists, right, from consultants. So, for example, if you're an expert in a field, right, let's say I have another dentist who comes to me and says, "How do you run a practice in New York City?" Because I know that material, I might be called a consultant, right? Business consultants, other consultants. A therapist, we all know, because I've been seeing therapists most of my life and coaches. So therapists are people who often ask the why questions, right? They take you from past to present, or they go back to the past to understand the present. And there's usually more analyzing, the why question involved. Coaching is more from the present to the future. It's taking you from where you are now and respecting that and getting you to where you want to be. And so it's more results oriented, action oriented. In my kind of coaching, I do go a little into past history, as you know, and because you have to understand the past to understand more what you really want in the future, but not in an analytic way, in a more action and results way. And it's fabulous for, is it when you're stuck or you're suffering or you just don't really know how to get about that goal or intention you want to get to and other things.
Yeah. And from my point of view, I've had a few coaches in my time. I actually had a business coach, and obviously yourself, which is more of a life coach. The times that I chose to have these coaches, obviously the first time was around that business piece, and I knew I wanted to elevate my career. And then obviously when I started speaking with yourself, it was more a case of I uplifted my whole life, and I needed to, I suppose, have someone that I can ask some of these questions, but could help guide me through something that was completely out of the normal for me. So that's why, obviously, I got a coach last year. I uplifted my life. I didn't know anyone, had a new job, new city, new cultures. So for me, that was why I got a coach. And I think you sometimes know when you need a little bit of guidance that isn't necessarily your friends and your family. That friends and family are fantastic and having that support system is great. But sometimes, especially myself, I need someone who can look at things without being emotional
That's it.
and can literally tell me how it is and be direct, which you definitely did with me.
Yes, I'm a New York girl. I tend to be direct, but I also put some humor into it. I have to tell you, so what I often tell clients, as Sophie knows very well, one thing to do, like what she just said, what would I say to you? Pat yourself on the back. And I'll tell you why in a moment. But Sophie, particularly, I have to say this, has to really pat herself on the back because she moved countries, which I have done that too. I moved to another country. I know how hard it can be and how much you're away from your family. You're away from what's familiar to you. And you have to develop new ways of being, meet new people, and not to mention work, right? And Sophie, right, work-life balance. Also to balance your life, all the areas of your life. It's not just all about work. So yeah, it's really important to, with a coach, you have, and this should be with a therapist too, but with a coach, you definitely should try to work with someone that gives you a safe space, a safe container to be yourself, really, most of all. My primary mission in this work is to let Sophie become real Sophie, to let whoever become real whoever, because you know what? We're each unique. We're each here for different reasons, for different intentions. We're all given special and unique abilities and gifts, and we have to bring them to the world. That's what we're here for. That's what makes us each so special and so important.
That was well put. Beautiful, I have to say. If someone at the moment is thinking about whether they want a coach or need a coach, are there any kind of telltale signs that you're like, if you're feeling like this, or, is there anything that you can advise to be like, this could be a time for a coach?
It's hard to exactly specify, but like you said, I think you have to, as you know, I often tell people, we have to feel our sensations and feelings in our body first. We often, especially in this culture here, listen to our conscious mind, which is good. It's important, right? The everyday thoughts are there, all the to-do lists and all that. But we also have a subconscious mind, which is beneath the level of the conscious, which might be represented by the body. It all gets stored in the body, right? So when you're feeling, something feels empty, even though your life looks accomplished on the outside. That's how I was for years. I looked successful, accomplished on the outside, but I was empty, anxious, a little depressed on the inside. Something was off. If you know that something's off, something's missing, even with the external stuff I have, then it's time. And it could be also related to trauma and other things. If you feel stuck, like I know what I want, but I don't really know how to go forward, or I don't know exactly what I want, it's good to have a coach. Now, a coach, I'm going to specify that. I'm going to say this. A proper coach will not tell you what to do, right? The coach helps you to help yourself. So the coach might ask questions that are helpful, give you exercises to do that are helpful, right? Which we do a lot of. But they don't tell you this is what you do, because it has to be you figuring it out for yourself. When I work with people, I want them to have these tools and exercises they can use for the rest of their lives in all situations.
Yeah, yeah, that's that's actually quite a good segue, actually. Because one of the topics we wanted to talk about, and we're just going to talk about it now because I think you mentioned it there, is around subconscious and the unconscious
Conscious,
mind.
right?
Yeah. What is the subconscious mind, and how does it actually like influence our daily thoughts and our
Oh,
behaviors?
that's a great thing to bring up. So again, the conscious mind is really our everyday mind, right? It's our, I'm talking to Sophie now. I have certain thoughts and to-do lists and what I have to do. I have to take my kid to school, my this to that. Okay. That's the conscious. We're talking here with that. That's what most of us use in our everyday life. Now, we tend to think, particularly in the West, the United States also, that that's what really runs our lives. But there's a big surprise, and it won't be that much of a surprise. It's really that the subconscious mind runs our lives. Now, again, the subconscious mind, we can also call it the unconscious, a little different in psychological terms, but the subconscious mind is under conscious, which means you don't know it's there. It's all the stuff. It's, let's say it's represented by the body, but it's all the stuff that you've absorbed your whole life, particularly from 0 to 7 years old, right? You absorbed all the information from your caretakers, parents, whatever, the country you lived in, the society, the institutions, schools, whatever. You absorb all that stuff like a sponge. And what happens is that it goes down. It goes down our subconscious mind because our conscious mind is too busy with other stuff, with everyday survival, right? Or functioning. So the subconscious is underneath, but it's very important to understand how to connect the subconscious mind, as you know, to the conscious awareness. Because if you don't know, if you can't figure out after a while what's going on in the subconscious mind, you're always going to be stuck. It's thinking doesn't get you out of thinking. You know, Albert Einstein, I don't remember the exact quote, but it's something like, you can't figure out a problem with the same processes that you made the problem with. So in other words, we make our problems mostly with the conscious mind. It's the subconscious that has to deal with the problem. So it's a thing of excavating the subconscious, which we do with our work, with our exercises, with our other stuff, physical and emotional and mental, right? And we go through that and we try to connect it and we become aware. And that's why I like hypnosis, hypnotherapy. Why I did it with my patients. Hypnosis is just getting someone or yourself in a trance state. All a trance state is a different brainwave state, the theta brainwave state, the same state as when you wake up in the morning and when you go falling off to sleep at night. All right, you're a little more suggestible. So in a trance state, the hypnotist will make post-hypnotic suggestions, which are positive suggestions that will take effect after the session. So just to tell you an example of subconscious, when I had hypnosis clients, when I had them here, I had them when I used to work as a dentist, it was so funny. I was going to say 95% of the time, you know, I get them out of trance and then I just let them relax a couple of minutes. I can't tell you how many times they said to me, but Dr. Gigi, Dr. Arnaud, I don't understand this. I don't feel anything. I don't feel any different. Well, it's because it's subconscious. You're not going to feel it consciously, but when you do feel it, it takes effect in your everyday life without you actually sometimes knowing it consciously. Do you have time? I can give you a quick example.
Go for it. Yeah.
Okay, I had a person, she was so adorable, and she had a hard time, like I have to say a lot of women, who some of them have a hard, maybe not you and I, but some women have a hard time speaking up for what they want.
Yeah, we don't have
We don't have
that, do we?
Well, I did have that. I shouldn't say that because I did have that when I was younger. I'm from a different generation, but I had to, in dental school particularly, learn to overcome that. But a lot of women have a hard time standing up to their bosses. So I had someone, she came in, and so we did some hypnosis. And of course she said, you know, I don't feel anything. I said, don't worry. You know, have a good week. Don't worry. And what I do usually is I call people a week later. So I called her like a week later. And I said, how you doing? I just said, how you doing in general? And she said, oh, you know what, Gigi, it was so funny this week. I was at work. She worked in a school. She was a teacher's aide. And she said to me, it's so funny. The principal came to me and I turned around and I kind of said to him, no, I'm not going to do this. And I want to do this. And I'm just listening to her and smiling to myself. And finally I said, so that's great. So the hypnosis had an effect. Oh, she went, oh my gosh. Yeah, that's how it works. You don't really know how it's going to take effect. But I realized that she was able to stand up to her boss. It's not magic. It's just that if you're ready and your subconscious is ready, It's a great way of kickstarting your subconscious hypnosis. Great way.
Is it similar to meditation?
Good question, Sophie. Really good questions. These are the ones I usually answer when I'm giving a talk about hypnosis. So in hypnosis, you're really just in an absorbed state of concentration. You're focused, really, your mind is very focused, but you have what's called a diminution of the GRO, the general reality orientation. So, in other words, you don't care what I'm saying. You don't care if you hear the kids screaming outside. You don't care if you hear traffic. You're kind of in your own little world, but you're focused on one thing, one goal. We go for one goal in hypnosis, right? Let's say you want to reduce stress, reduce anxiety. That's the goal. With meditation, you don't have a specific goal in mind. The idea is to blank your mind, right? Or to clear it. So you let thoughts, I always represent it by the ears, but you let thoughts go in and go out, go in and go out. Blank mind, beginner's mind. So it's different in that way.
A lot of people talk about meditation, and the amount of books I've read that talk about meditation and how important it is, or, how useful it is. What do you think around meditation? What are your
All right,
thoughts?
good question. And I'm going to give, everybody works differently, as you know. And so I respect that. So meditation is fabulous. People who use it said it changes their lives. There's also something called mindfulness, which I use a little more. So, or you can call meditation is not just sitting on a mountaintop. That's not the only kind of meditation. For example, I don't do that kind of meditation, but I'm very visual and aware of things around me. So I live near a park in New York. So I go to the park and I'll see the beautiful clouds going by. I notice these things. I smell the flowers. I look at the trees. I look at the birds. That's for me meditative. Nature for me is very meditative. So, and if I'm walking, that's also giving me bilateral stimulation, which makes my right and left hemispheres connect and grounds me to the earth. So to me, that's meditative. So there are different ways of having meditation. You can also call it mindfulness. What I do is more mindfulness. And you can do mindfulness anytime. You can do it, as you know, washing dishes. I actually don't mind washing dishes. I'm one person because it's meditative for me. I mean, my hands are in the soap. I'm, dreaming of other things. And that can be anything can be mindfulness. So meditation's helpful, very. So is mindfulness, very helpful. There are different techniques for different people. Some people yoga. There are so many ways to calm and center your body. As you know, I teach people grounding techniques, which I use a lot. So that works well for me. But everyone's different. So I want to say all of these techniques are good. It's what works best for you as a unique, wonderful, whole individual.
I think that's really important to remember, because the amount of times, I've been in an environment, or I'm listening to a podcast, or I'm listening to something which is, I get up at 4 a.m. in the morning, I do this, I do that, I do this. And I think it's only actually really in the past year or so that I've realized that everyone's different and I don't have to be the same as someone else. And, if I don't want to wake up at 5 in the morning, I don't have to. I can go to the gym later in the day if that suits me. And same with meditation.
I agree with you, but there are other things. For example, you do the morning routine we learned together. Okay,
Yeah.
So I teach a morning routine very specifically, which utilizes emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual. Now that is mindfulness, and the work we do with codes of conduct, or that is also mindfulness. So that is a way of doing it, but the name doesn't matter. And I laughed when you said 5 a.m. because I am a night person, and you will never see me up at 5 a.m. unless I have to get a plane or something. But it's whatever works for you. It is supposedly helpful to get up early and all that, but it's whatever works for you. And I just want to mention, Sophie, this culture of comparison, because it's really gotten tough. It's always been like that, keeping up with the Joneses or whoever, but it's becoming particularly hard for the younger generation because of social media. Because I'm just going to say that a lot of this stuff is garbage on social media. It's not real life. It's just the 2 minutes of the life that's good, or they make it look good. We have to be careful. We have to remember that comparison, I'm going to say this, and we have heard this, comparison is poison to your soul. Poison to your soul. You are each person, each one of you is a unique, special human being. You've got particular gifts values that only you'll be the only one forever that will have all this. And so you have to express it the way you're supposed to. Okay. In a healthy manner, we want to say, but yes, 100%. So, and we have to be careful to listen to ourselves more. I honestly think we need more quiet in the world. It's so loud, everything. Social media, even going to, I love cafes, and it's so loud, even music, everything. We need to have time to either do mindfulness, meditation, all the things that you mentioned, however you want to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a fan of going for a run. That
Yes.
helps me.
See, that
That's a
helps
good
you.
one.
And that's me. It's going for a walk or to a cafe.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have to
Yeah,
find your
walking's
own
good.
way. And you'll
Yeah.
you'll know it's right. You know how you know it's right? You listen to your body, the sensations and feelings. If your body feels tingly, excited, or neutral and calm, that's usually the right thing. If your body feels tense, like you get a knot in your stomach or your shoulders are tight, your chest is tight, that's usually not the right thing. Your body, your intuition, because the intuition lies in the subconscious. So does a lot of creativity, which is great stuff. It's in the body, right? We know that, right? And you know this, and so many of us are not in contact with our body. And I want to mention this because I did this for decades and suffered. And there's no reason to suffer as long as I did. When you realize that I was distracting from getting into my body, from getting into my subconscious. How did I did it by staying busy and achieving and achieving. Some people do it with drugs. Some people do it with alcohol. Some people do it with a lot of sex. Some people do it with whatever. Scrolling. Distractions. But there is a point you have to be quiet. You have to get inside. You've got to feel what's going on in here. And then feel it physically.
Yeah. That's definitely something you taught me last year is, feel your body more. Is that the right term? It's probably not.
What
But
did you
it's,
say?
feel your body
Feel
more.
your body. Feel your
Yeah.
body. Feel the sensations.
Yeah.
Realize your emotions are there too. That's where they are.
Yeah. Yeah. And now I'm just a lot more emotional, but that's fine.
That's
You're allowed
good.
to cry.
That's
Yeah.
good. And see, that's a good thing. Also, people think you have to hold back emotions. No, I think it's so, crying or tears, it's such a wonderful release of energy. We are mostly energy, right? And and it shows empathy too. It's nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. That's something that, yeah, I even cry at films. Anyway, talking about the subconscious mind and something that I'm going to ask of you, which I don't think many coaches have done, but are there any tips and tricks you could give people to kind of manage or control your mind, subconscious
Yes.
mind?
Well, let's say I could, I have, as you know, I teach a lot of tools and exercises to become aware of things because I do believe it's a little complex, but I do believe we can change our thoughts and beliefs, which are held subconsciously, and in that way change our lives. So what do? We have beliefs and thoughts that just go on replay. They're like on automatic replay that we don't even know are there, right? But that they don't necessarily, they're in conflict with our conscious mind. For example, I'm just going to give an example. Let's say you want to date and you want to find a nice, normal guy. But in your background, you had only men who were non-trustworthy, abusive, or whatever, non-trustworthy. It doesn't even have to be abusive, neglectful, whatever, or selfish. You know what? Your conscious mind might say, I want to find a nice guy, but your subconscious mind is saying, no, you feel safe because you feel familiar with the not nice guy. So let me explain. So as you know, what is you know this answer, but what is the primary function of our brain mind?
Keep you alive.
There you go. Safe and surviving, right? And also belonging, right? Connecting with people. So that's part of it. So safety to your brain is what's familiar to you. And if what was familiar to you as a child and is stuck in your subconscious was being badly treated by men, that's what's going to feel safe to you. And that's what comes out in your conscious life. It's a little hard it takes some work to understand all this, but It doesn't always go together. That's why conscious doesn't work alone. Like, this from willpower. You can like make a New Year's resolution, 3 weeks later, it's gone because it's only your conscious mind. Your subconscious mind has to agree with it. So how did we do? We did a little different exercises for the subconscious mind, right? We became aware of our thoughts, observing your thoughts and questioning your thoughts, because that's a big one. We grounded ourselves to become more in tune with our bodies, right? We did some grounding techniques. One could be just putting your feet in soil, which is really great, minerals, or on the floor, right? And doing grounding techniques like using your senses. Let's say, I always give the example of brushing your teeth. I was a dentist, so it's the easiest one, and all of us do it. So you're brushing your teeth and you're looking around, and you're in your head, you're naming 2 things that you see, 2 things that you hear, 2 things that you feel, touch, all the senses. And as you're doing that, you're getting out of your head, coming back to your body. I smell that delicious mint of the toothpaste, and I feel the nice bristles on my gums, and I see that picture over there of my son and I on a vacation, and that brings you back to you, to your present day, and to your body. There are little tricks, and I teach a lot of them. It's hard to say one because there's not just one. It's more complicated than that, or we wouldn't be doing coaching or therapy for a long time. But and they both have to be done in careful ways. I do believe in both. I do believe in both therapy and coaching because I think they have different functions.
And something to point out there as well with these, obviously, tips and tricks that you've mentioned, but in general, when you are working with a coach or a therapist, whoever it may be, you actually have to put the work in yourself. I think that's something that a lot of people think is like, we can just have the conversation, but unless you're going away and actually putting in the effort,
Yes.
nothing's going to happen.
That is such a great point, Sophie, because I say this all the time. I am very clear in the beginning. I don't pull any punches. I'm like, you have to do the work, because honestly, it's just not going to work if you don't do it. It's not hard work. It's not like going to dental school or like college. No, it's not that kind of work. But it's, this everyday little exercises, things to do. So what is the idea of that? When you repeat for this, I'm going to kind of answers the other question. For the subconscious mind to understand things from you, you have to repeat them and practice them over and over and over so that you can eventually replace the limiting and negative thoughts and beliefs that are deep inside you that don't help you. You can replace them with better, healthier thoughts. But to do that, you have to do what? Repeat. I always say thousands of times. So I work with people for 3 months minimum, but that's the minimum amount of time to change a habit. The idea is that we're developing thought, belief, mind, body habits and rituals that will be repeated, if not forever, for your whole life, for a long time, until they change. And they do, and they can change. And then, of course, we go into the thing of having to believe them. So, but yes, that's a beautiful point. You can't just go to a coach and say abracadabra. No, it takes a lot of work. You have to learn. I'm going to say something. Very interesting fact I just read 2 weeks ago. Do you know that I didn't know this? You wonder where the word abracadabra comes from. Do you know it's originally from Hebrew? They think it's from a Hebrew word that means it's something about I say my words clearly. And I always say to clients, don't I always say, watch the words you're using to yourself?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because we talk to ourselves often with negative words, with inner critic words. And it's so important, the words you say to yourself, the thoughts you say to yourself, the beliefs. It's so important because, again, this is what runs our lives. And that's all the subconscious stuff. So it's not abracadabra, but you do have to be aware of all the things and repeat. It's not hard work though, guys, right? Doesn't it? Don't you find when you see it starts making a difference, you keep doing it?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's with anything though. Like even when you start losing weight, for example, or if you want to lose weight or put weight on, when you start seeing the results, you just want to keep going and it helps you. So it's exactly the same thing. And it's also similar to we spoke about this last year, but I started tennis lessons and it takes repetition. Like when we're going to the lessons, I had to do the same move over and over again. It's the same thing for your mind, isn't it?
Beautiful. It's for your mind and your body.
Yeah.
You repeat, and then you get to the point where then you can start training your mind to have intentions and start seeing them in your life now so they come about in the future. But that's something else. But yes, that's a beautiful way of saying it. Everything takes repetition, but there's so much, I don't know, it changed my life completely. I literally suffered for decades. And one day, I heard it for decades. Intellectually, I understood it all. My conscious mind. I kept understanding it. I read books. I took millions, like courses, and then it just internally hit me. It like got deep enough that I said, "Oh my gosh, it's my thoughts. Wow, I think so negatively, and I have these beliefs, and they can come from different things. We can't blame ourselves. In my case, they came from family trauma, a lot of intergenerational trauma, and in some cases, a lot of cases, that happens, and we work with that too. But and most of us have something or some kind of trauma or something to work through. But when you realize that, wow, we don't have to stay with what we're given or what we had, whatever our circumstances were, whatever our experiences were, whatever age or stage of life you're in, you can change. A good piece of news is that our brains are neuroplastic, right? They're malleable. That's why we can do this work, thank God. Because when I was a kid, we had something called a fixed mindset rather than a growth mindset. The fixed mindset was when, people thought, oh my gosh, when you get to be my age, you can't learn anymore. You can't change anymore. That is scary. Think about that. I thought that as a kid. But no, in the last few years, we've seen with the neuroscience, epigenetics, all this great studying and research, we've seen that our brains stay neuroplastic. They stay malleable. You can change them. You can do things. So it doesn't matter what age or stage you are. I'm just saying that to people, whether you're older or younger. You're not too old. You're not too young. You're not too this. You're not too that. You're not damaged. You're not broken. You just have to start changing those deeper beliefs and thoughts inside you. And voila, really, with work.
With work. I think that's a really good point you mentioned is you can be any age. Anyone can do it. So that's so important. Now you've touched upon fixed mindset there. You gave us a little bit of an overview on what that is. What is growth mindset then?
So that's the opposite. That's what we have now. We realize that we are not just, we used to fixed mindset. We thought we had certain genetic makeup, you had certain influences, and tough luck, you were stuck. Done. No. So the growth mindset is what we know now, that your brain is always changing. So your life can always change. Your thoughts can always change. Your beliefs can always change. So you can always grow. You can always develop. You're not stopped at a certain age or stage. That's wonderful. Okay, granted, I'm going to admit this, as I get older, there are things you forget more. It's a little harder to learn something because there's so much in your mind and in your experience, right? Yeah. So it is a little more challenging, but you can do it. Look, I changed a career. I mean, I had the career on the side, but I changed it in my 60s. I have plenty of clients of mine and people who are changing or changing more than once. Entrepreneurs change, that. There's so many. It's fascinating now. I think it opens us to so many possibilities and adventures. It's great.
I think with the way the world is and all of the different changes that are coming up, and obviously I speak to a lot of people within the technology space, that AI and all these different things, it moves into the word, I suppose, pivot, which I'm hearing a lot, is can you pivot, whether it is your career, obviously mindset, but, with, say, AI coming in, can you think about things differently? Can you utilize these tools and being able to pivot? That's a really big skill to have.
Perfect. I mean, there are
Yeah.
plenty of books about it. There's actually a book called Pivot, which I actually liked a lot, and I read a lot of books about that. But I have to be honest, that's what we're talking about. To be clear, your generation and younger, you're going to have no choice. All right? So these days, and I have kids in your age, so these days, most people stay in jobs 2.5, 3 years. It's not like me who stayed in something 40 years. That's rare. And it's now becoming rare. You have AI, you have all these social media. So many things came into being in the last literally 10, 20 years. My generation has seen the change from dial telephones. That's how I was raised. No electronic devices to this. It's completely different. So Yes, you have to learn to pivot. Your generation, you have to learn to be in life anyway, to be honest. This is a good thing for life. You need to be flexible, but yet strong in your own intentions and convictions. So that's why it's very important to maybe work with somebody to get your own goals, intentions, values, like we talk about, what your values are, your passions, your priorities, correct? Your purpose or purposes,
Yep.
and they can change over time. Get them straight. Have the internal stuff, strong, like a tree. You have the, right? You have the, what's it called? The,
Foundation.
thank you. The trunk of the tree. And you be like the branches. You're flexible. Maybe now you're an entrepreneur. Maybe in a few years you become an author. Maybe not, because I'm also writing a book now. Maybe in a night, you become something else. You have to be flexible, especially now with AI, with all the changes. But you don't have to get overwhelmed. But I do want to repeat again to everyone, please shut everything off at times. I'm addicted like everyone else, but shut it off at times and be quiet with yourself, because it's very hard to feel the feelings or understand what your intentions are if you don't give yourself some peace and time for your inner self to talk to you. Your inner self has to talk to you. There has to be a connection. So I think it's very important to do both. So you guys are going to have to learn to be very flexible, more risk-taking, more adventurous. And a lot of you are, which is great, actually. And it's good for life, because that's how life is.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know me, I don't beat around the bush. Life is like the one thing you could be certain of is change. Wow, does life change? And it surprises you a lot. And you have to be, like the waves.
Yeah. Are there any, again, I keep asking for tips and tricks, and yeah, hopefully this is going to be useful for people, but around that kind of growth mindset and fixed mindset, is there anything that can help people make the shift that you can think of?
Most people these days have a growth mindset,
Okay.
but a lot of people have fixed in that they tell themselves, or they were told, for example, I hate to say, it's terrible to me, but there are kids who were told by their parents, you're stupid, you're not good enough. I mean, it's sad in all different ways. And they grow up thinking that. And until they realize that they can change it, they may stay stuck in a fixed mindset. But I'm telling you, you can change it. The brain doesn't stay stuck. You can make changes. You can, let's say, excavate that subconscious, connect it to your conscious, and then do exercises to change the neural pathways in your brain. It's like, you remember the old records, like I was raised with the old records. So you'd put the needle down on a song, right? And if you wanted to change a song, what'd you do? You pick the needle up, you put it on a different track. That's what we do, the neural pathways in our brains. The brain cells, the neurons, they work together to create thoughts. We change those pathways and circuits. It's amazing that we can do that. If people know already that you can do that, that's why I say, no matter what your circumstances, no matter what trauma you had, no matter what life brought to you, hardships or challenges, or what age you are, or what stage you're at, or what education you've had or not had, you can always change. That's the growth mindset. There's a good book, a really good book by a specialist in this field. I don't know if it's just called Mindset or Growth Mindset, but I think it's Mindset by Carol Dweck, Dweck. There are a lot of good books out about all these things, but Carol Dweck has a book, Mindset, that can explain this to you beautifully.
Yeah. Yeah. And if anything, just give you a call.
Give me a call, and I have a lot of suggestions and books, and call me. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. So another question that I have, because this is something that I personally found really useful, so I would like you to talk about it a little bit, is visualization. I'm very much a creative. I'm very much someone who, I used to, when I was a kid, and no one knows this actually, so this is a little bit of an insight. I don't know if I even told you this, but when I was younger, I used to listen to music going to bed, and I used to picture myself being before like a singer or a dancer.
Yes.
And I used to do that all the time as a kid, and then I also went into being a dancer professionally. Was never a great singer, although I like to think I am. But yeah, that was always something that I did, and I actually saw the benefit from it, which is great. So yeah, are you able to give a little bit of an overview around what visualization
Well, you're saying
is?
it beautifully. I mean, you were a dancer, you were a professional dancer.
Yeah.
We know that. So
Yeah.
You did do the visualization. You may not have known you were doing it, but you were doing it. I did that too. I used to look out of the window of my suburban home, and in my generation, we were middle class. We didn't have a lot of money. People didn't travel middle class on planes, but we were the first family who did, because my parents were from France and we went to visit family. But I always dreamt of going abroad. Even then, I didn't know anything about it. And I do. I'm a big traveler. So yes, we visualize. So that's exactly how it goes. Visualization is a great tool. Again, a lot of it has to do with understanding our thoughts, observing them, questioning them, because we know that 90% or more of our thoughts are just not true. Just not true. I'm going to repeat that. We have 12,000 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and over 90%, I'm not going to use bad language, salty language, but they're BS. Over 90% of them. So we have to observe them. We have to question if they're really true, right? And once we find thoughts that are true and that we like, we have to then start understanding how to train our subconscious mind to believe the thoughts. Once we believe them, we want to become them. So that's what you did. You danced around the room, you sang, you became a dancer. And you felt the way a dancer felt, you thought the way a dancer, did, you loved the music, you moved your body. Okay, you became a dancer, even if you weren't yet a professional dancer. Yeah. So in this time now, you become who you want to be in the future. You feel it, you use your senses, you use your whole being. Then you see it. So you visualize like you did. That's part of being it. You see it, you visualize it, you feel it, right? And then you'll see it come to fruition, because what happens is when we become what we place an intention, we embed it in the subconscious mind, and then it becomes something we become, and then something we see in our lives, because the universe helps us out. When the subconscious mind believes that we believe ourselves, is a little complex, then the universe chimes in and helps us out. And you saw that when you became a dancer, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Right. And, another example, I do that with author. I just wrote a book and I'm editing it now. And I had a dream, and it was so funny. I had a dream that because I love bookstores, like the old bookstores, even though it's changing now, but I had a dream that there was a bookstore, and there were all my books in the window, my book in the window. And if I visualize that in my life, which I'm starting to do, that's what I'd like to, whatever. But that's visualization. That's an example. It's the people who succeed as they want to often do this. It doesn't have to be success in a financial way or in the way most people think about it. If you want your success, you have to, first of all, you can write this down, start with a very clear intention, clarity, clear intention. You have to figure out what your real intentions are by knowing your values, your passions, your priorities. You figure out, you make a clear intention. You learn the exercises, which we could do together, to embed it in the subconscious mind. Okay. Then you start becoming it in different ways. Okay. And the people around you, by the way, are very important. The people you hang around with are very important in that. And then you see it and you become it. And then the universe chimes in. It'll bring synchronicities, which you think are coincidences, but are things that happen. And then you have to learn to follow those. Trust your intuition, your gut, whatever. Follow those synchronicities, even if consciously they look a little weird. The intuition doesn't work like the conscious mind. Is this clear?
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure it's clear, because there's so much there, but okay.
Yeah, well, we could probably speak for a few hours on all of this. No, I think that's really important, and I do think visualization does. For me, it's really helped, and I've actually seen the value of it. And like I say, I'm a creative, and that's a creative way for me to think about my life and what I want.
Can I say something about creativity, though? Because I consider also myself a creative, but the truth is, we humans are all creative. Yeah. That is part of our DNA, all of us. We do have creativity and imagination. And again, Einstein said, what did he say? Imagination is our intelligence having fun. Creativity, it's so important to who we are as humans. We can't live without it. But creativity doesn't only have to be in the arts. I want to specify that for people. Because, I have people say to me, oh, I'm not creative. No. Now, I happen to be a painter and I write, and I was an actor. So I am in the arts, but other people can be creative in business. You are creative in business. You can be creative in the sciences. You have to be a great scientist. You have to be creative because you have to think of things before other people. That's using your imagination, inventiveness. We are all creative and we have to express our creativity in whatever the way it is. It could be one person likes to fix cars. That's creative.
Yeah. Yeah, it is true. And I do think I've seen that as well when I obviously moved into the corporate world from performing into the corporate world. I was using like my creativity in a different way. And I still was like, I am still being creative. I'm still being creative now. I have to think about different strategies and this and this. And yeah, you just utilize it in a different way.
Yeah, to be an entrepreneur, you have to be extremely creative because you have to also
Mm,
bounce different balls at the same time and
yeah.
have different ideas, innovate. Yeah, no,
Mhm.
it's also a great thing to develop and
Yeah.
work with. I do think that. Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
I do believe.
So I have a closing question for you. I ask everyone, and I feel like you're probably going to have some really good tips here. What is one piece of advice you'd give your younger self?
All right, I would have saved a lot of years of suffering of this one piece, which I have a feeling you might know what I'm going to say. And I tell my clients to take a very bright colored Post-its and post this all over the house or anywhere you can see it. And what is it? I said it before. 90+% of your thoughts are not true. So do not believe my thoughts is what you write. Do not believe my thoughts. But of course you're going to argue. I argued for years. I argued, I believed my thoughts. Oh, but this is really. And then, so I give particular exercise to do to learn how to observe your thoughts, become the objective observer of your thoughts. And then I have 4 questions you ask your thoughts. Is it true? Can you be absolutely sure it's true? How do your mind, body, and spirit feel when it's not true, when it's true? What are the outcomes and not? Once you do all this, oh my gosh, 90% of my thoughts are just garbage. And so I can change them and and if I would have done that 40 years before, my life would have been a lot less stuck and suffering and sad. Seriously. On the inside.
Yeah, it's hard to do though.
You may need, that's why I say you may need help. I do say that with people. I needed help because what happens, most of what we do occurs in relationship, right?
Hmm.
When we were little, how did we get the ideas that we put inside? In relationship with our parents, with our families, with our neighbors. So most of what we do is in relationships. So you have to find a partnership that you can have a safe space with, that they respect you for who you are. They don't try to change you. They try to work with you. That's what I try to do. And that's what a good coach or therapist or somatic practitioner does with you. And it's not easy. As you know, it's the repeating. It takes time. It's repeating once you understand how it works. And we do, as you know, a lot of different exercises. Some are physical, some are emotional. By the way, the patting on the back, I just want to explain that to people. Our minds have a natural negativity bias that goes back to survival from primitive times because we had to be aware of the tiger, didn't want the saber-toothed tiger to attack us or our clan, right? So we developed this hypervigilance, right? And so what happens is that we developed in our brains a negativity bias, and this hasn't changed with the eons. So what's the negativity bias? That if you're thinking 10 things in a day, right? 7 are positive, 2 are neutral, and 1 is negative. Which is the one you stay stuck on? The negative. All of us. Okay, that's a negativity bias. So there are ways to have an antidote to it. So there are a few ways to do it. I do the MTT, PTT, which is negative thought time, positive thought time exercise. And I also, a simple one I always give to everybody is pat yourself on the back. So like I told Sophie, why? Pat yourself on the back. Number 1, it's an antidote to the negativity bias. So you're saying, good girl, a good boy, you got him, you got him. So you're telling yourself, it's not negative. It's the opposite of the negativity bias. It's positive. Number 2, what happens? You smile. And the smiling stimulates, that's right. The smiling stimulates the vagus nerve, the biggest nerve in the body, which is part of the parasympathetic nervous system. So your body, which is the opposite of fight or flight, so your body calms down and then your mind follows suit. So you're not only going against negativity bias, but you're calming your body and then your mind. So if you do this many times a day, like you say you have a thought and then you have a healthier thought, good girl. Or you did the exercise that you were supposed to do. You wrote yourself a note, do this, whatever, Peloton or whatever, and you go, good girl, you did it. Yeah. Okay, so that's a little trick, but there's so many like that. But I would say, know that most of your thoughts are just garbage and question them. And then with the other thoughts, you can use them in very constructive ways. And the other thing, and it's the same thing with fears, okay? Fears control many of us. And I would say a good 90% of our fears never come to pass. When you get older, you realize that, don't you? How much time did we spend overanalyzing something, being scared of something, going over it in our heads? The spiral so many times and times and times. And then later on you realize it never came to pass. What am I worrying for? What's this anxiety for? I just want to give another little trick like that. If you just quickly want to stop yourself, you can say to yourself, stop 3 times with increasing energy and intensity. Literally, I'll do this. If I have this spiraling thought in my brain, which I have many less of now, I will go, stop, 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 loudly and with energy, even if it's in my own head, and it distracts me and it kind of stops it. And there are other ways too. But there are so many little ways you can learn to work with your thoughts. Just knowing that most of them are not true, it's a big one, right?
And I know that was a closing question, but I just want to mention 2 more things. So, first of all, we've only kind of touched the surface here. We spoke, obviously, I worked with you last year. We spoke so many times, and there's so much more information that's out there. And, you're very educated on this. So, there's so much we can dive into. Now, the final question, not the closing question, because we've gone past that one, but this is the final one. How do you know that you found the right coach? How do you know that that person's for you?
Well, it's a good question. But first of all, you know this. If someone comes to work with me, I have them fill out a questionnaire. I learned to do that because I'll know if they really want to work at it. And then, as you know, I have a free clarity call with people. So I do a 45-minute call with people free just to see if we're a good partnership. So they'll tell me their stuff, what they're concerned about, and I'll tell them. And we'll see each other's way of connecting, and we'll see each other's personalities or the way we go about things and see if there's a jiving or not. I mean, most of the people who fill out the questionnaire and I talk to, we do jive because they know already my back. They know I had another career. They know I have a science background. They know I have an art background. They know that I'm a New York girl and so I'm straightforward. I like humor. I think, traveled a lot. I've lived abroad. So, end up attracting the people who you really are good with, but as the client, the coachee, you will either feel comfortable with that person and think, yeah, I could talk to that person. I trust that person. I feel safe. I feel heard. I feel understood. You kind of know that when you meet people because what are we? We're energy, right? That's the thing of visualization. How come we can visualize? Because there's so much potential energy in the universe, right? Universal energy. And what we do is we're all connected through this energy. So let's say we're energy, like we have auras right around us. That's all energy. When you meet someone, right? Don't you know pretty quickly exactly the energy? Am I going to connect to this person or not? And they could be a lovely person. Nothing to do with that. It's just energy. So you feel that.
I'm a big believer in energy.
Yeah, so you feel that. And like anything else, you can always change too if you don't like the person.
And it's something when we initially spoke, you actually challenged me, which was good. You asked me questions where I had to think or I felt like, like a little bit taken back. And for me, I like that,
Well, that's what you have to.
Yeah.
That's a great point because with coaching, if you're looking for someone to yes you, that's not coaching. And you have to be challenging because you're asking a person to think underneath the surface, not just their surface thing. So that's great. And exactly, you do see if someone is going to connect with you because there's something called resistance too. Even if there are some people, Sophie, who really want help, but their minds are still so resistant that they're not quite ready. You have to be ready too. Like it could be like some people, I'll meet them and I'll kind of mention, maybe a little more time. Like they're not quite ready because they're resisting a lot.
Yeah.
So you notice
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I think that's a good little place to stop. This has been awesome. I knew that we'd have a good conversation, but I just feel like I can keep asking you questions, and I know some of this, but it's really refreshing to hear it. And you do need reminders, like you say, you need to constantly repeat a lot of these things. So yeah, this has been so good. So I really appreciate you taking the time
Yeah.
today.
Such a pleasure to be with you. Such a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Enjoy. Have a wonderful day, people.